Good morning, folks. Continuing with our mimer, Ata Tzitzava. There are four things that have to do with emunah, with faith. Four ideas that we're dealing with. One idea is that our soul above, not the way it's in our body, our soul above sees godliness. That trickles down into our soul the way it is in the body, and it has a sense of that. It doesn't see godliness because it's wrapped up in a body. That's not what it's perceiving. So, of course, if you perceive godliness, you don't got much choice. So the soul, the way it's rooted in its source, it doesn't have much choice but to, be connected to the divine. But it trickles down here to us in our soul and a body. That's the first. And as a result, we have faith. We have faith in God, right? Because it's something that we see. Our soul senses it. It sees it. Second is, there's emunah, faith, because it's an expression of the very core of who I am. Not that I'm seeing something outside of me, but God and godliness is the core essence of my being. So I'm experiencing it in that manner. It's even a deeper, profounder way. As we've learned that's the fact that our soul sees, that's something that is a reality of the soul. The fact that it's the essence and the core of me, to get to that, we need the Raya Mehemna, we need the faithful shepherd. Then we have also that emunah becomes internalized. Right? It's not just the core essence of me. It's me, but internalized. Internalized means, I grasp some element of it in my mind. I have a sense of it in my heart. Right? And again, the Raya Mehemna feeds faith, will feed all of these things. And the final thing is that emunah, faith, that brings us to self-sacrifice. That we put ourselves aside, right, doing our will and fulfilling the will of God, what His will is. So, accordingly,
Obey.
So accordingly, we can explain another question. That which, remember that the Rebbe's discourse is based on the previous Rebbe's discourse that he said in 1927. Right? Moshe is the faithful shepherd, that he feeds faith, right? In his teachings, It's interesting, just the concept of what does it mean to feed faith. He's a teacher. His Moshe Rabbeinu is a teacher. What do you mean he's feeding faith? The teachings, someone who's someone is a teacher of math. Someone's a teacher um, of science. Someone's a teacher of whatever. They're teaching a subject. They're teaching a subject. When you teach Torah, not only are you teaching life, but you're teaching faith. You're feeding faith. You're teaching it, which means the authenticity of God becomes much more real. And that's right. It's internalized. It brings you to recognize that you got to fulfill God's will, not your will. It's it's a it's something that changes you. Any other um, discipline is, I'd say not all disciplines, but for the most part, any discipline isn't about changing you. It's just giving you knowledge. Teachings of Torah is not about giving you knowledge. That knowledge is power. Now you have more power. Excuse me. Sorry. How was that? Sorry, folks. Yes, so all disciplines are, giving you a knowledge. Knowledge is power. And it doesn't mean change. That changes us, not necessarily, but teachings from Torah and specifically, the Raya Mehemna, faithful shepherd who's feeding the flock faith. They're not feeding information. They're not feeding knowledge. Not to say that it's not information, it's not, but that's not what it is. We're not learning now information. You're not gaining knowledge. That's not what this is. I mean, Not to say you're not getting that, but that's not what it is. It's connection to God, not gaining you know, it's a connection, a deeper connection to God. That's faith. It brings us to a greater connection to God. That's what it means, faith. That connection then, of course, will express itself in many different ways. Knowing God within creation. It's like we're learning now in Tanya. It means um, so there's that awareness. There's then doing what God needs from us, the mitzvahs that we do, whether it's studying Torah, whether it's prayer, tefillin, Shabbos, kosher, whatever it is, right? That's what it means, feeding faith. That which are being fed is not merely that we can perceive godliness, not just to permeate us with that connection of godliness that becomes internalized, that we own it. Not only that we it brings out the core essence of the connection that we have. In other words, it's not there isn't like um, there's like there's different components to life. There's you come to synagogue, okay, so you got your Jewish component, you got your connection to God, but then there's other things. Core of the soul tells us, there's only one thing. There's only that connection to be made. Of course, that will express itself in going to work. Doesn't mean you don't go to work. It doesn't mean that you won't go on vacation, right? It doesn't mean that, but it means you'll do those things as it's an expression of the core essence of who you are, in that connection to God. And of course, and also by what they're feeding the Raya Mehemna is that it will bring us to sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning that I won't make a life about me. Everybody makes life about themselves. I give in order to get. If I won't give, then I won't get. So that's not real sacrifice. Sacrifice is I'm giving me up for what God needs of me. Now, I'm not doing it so I could just become bigger and better. Not to say that we do become bigger and better, but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because that's what God needs. And He's the true reality of me, true reality of everything. Right. So, the Raya Israel gives us that strength that we can stand in self-sacrifice in Torah mitzvahs. So seemingly, this that Moshe feeds faith through giving the awareness of God and godliness in a person's life is in order that it should be internalized and we own it. And it becomes a part of us. In other words, we understand it intellectually and it feeds us emotionally. That's what Moshe did. The faithful shepherds throughout the generations, mind you, when they fed faith, it was to bring out the self-sacrifice because that's what was necessary. In the desert, the Jews really didn't have to sacrifice because God openly took care of them. They complained. Okay, another story. But they didn't need self-sacrifice, right? They went to battle. All they had to do was, be in line. If they were aligned, everything was good. But the faithful shepherds throughout the generations, they brought to self-sacrifice because that's what was demanded. So in the discourse of the previous Rebbe, he begins with, that which Moshe does, that he gives an awareness of God and therefore gives the empowerment that it could be internalized, becomes a part of the individual. But he concludes with the idea of self-sacrifice. So we need to understand the the mahalach, you know, he seems to bring it to a different idea. So is it that we internalize it or is it we self-sacrifice? What is it? And we're going to continue with that thought. Okay. Um, I have to end a couple moments early today. All right. We'll see everybody soon.